I wanted to start off this video letting you all know something important before you continue watching. If you haven't already played Stardew Valley, you are missing out on a great opportunity of exploring a completely blind playthrough of the game. My introduction to the game was that it was like another game I enjoyed and that I should give it a try. This game works best if you have no expectations. I had no idea about the wonderful time I would spend playing it, and it made the experience all the more special. So, if you like games that are slower in pacing and focus on building yourself and relationships with other characters in the game, then turn off this video and go give the game a try for yourself. After, come back and then we can have this conversation. If you have played the game, or just don't care about going in blindly, good, let's continue on. As you may have been able to tell from my videos from last year, I am a huge Animal Crossing fanatic. Growing up, something about coming home from school, booting up the game, and taking my mind off things really had an effect on my life. I'll leave a link to the video where I talk about that stuff in the description. Anyways, last year, I found myself craving the same kind of experience that Animal Crossing gave me. So I headed straight for Reddit, which is not something I typically do, but you could say I was in a desperate need for a chill game to play. This is when someone recommended Stardew Valley to me. At that point, I had heard absolutely nothing about the game, but more and more people started telling me that it's the game I am looking for. So later that night, I went and picked it up for myself, and oh my god am I happy I did. Not only did the game have the same heart as Animal Crossing games, but it expanded on this idea in ways I would have never thought of. I felt like I was missing a certain experience like this because, as a kid, I never was interested in playing any of the Harvest Moon games. As soon as I loaded up on my computer, I couldn't put it down for hours. But we will get to why I think it keeps you wanting more a bit later on. First, let me explain what the game even is. Stardew Valley begins with a shot of your character's grandpa in his deathbed. Without further explaining the situation, he gives you a letter that he tells you not to open. With this, he exclaims, "There will come a day when you become crushed by the burden of modern life, and your bright spirit will fade before a growing emptiness. When that happens, my boy, you will be ready for this gift." 20 years pass, and you find your character wasting his life away in an office cubicle. This is the moment that you realize that not only your time has come, but you're also prepared to read the note your grandpa left for you. The letter reads, "If you're reading this, you must be in dire need of change. The same thing happened to me long ago. I'd lost sight of what mattered most in life, real connections with other people and nature. So I dropped everything and moved to the place where I truly belong." And with that, you leave a life that was clearly not right for you and travel to Stardew Valley to begin your new life tending to a very run-down looking farm. It is now your job to bring the farm back to its former glory and answer your true calling. The best word I think I could give this game is progression. Each in-game day lasts 15 real-world minutes, and that time can be spent in many ways, but each activity is a way to build the world and your character. Some days, you spend entirely on growing your farm. Then the next, you could go on an adventure deep in the caves to battle enemies to harvest new resources. There's also fishing, mining, and a ton more activities for you to try every day. This highlights some of the greatest parts of the game. It's definitely a grinding game, but I think it's the only game in this genre that does grinding progression right. I never felt like I was forced to do any work, and that is because all the work you are put up to is created on your own terms. Say you were to start a new patch of land to grow plants. It is a commitment to make for yourself, knowing you're going to have to water them each day and eventually harvest them when they arrive. There are some elements of the game that restrict some choices you make for yourself, but they are extremely reasonable. These restrictions include a stamina bar that depletes as you tend to your farm and mine for treasures, which can be replenished by eating food. Another restriction is the day cycle, which, as I mentioned before, lasts 15 minutes. You have to plan and invest your time each day to ensure you get enough done before 2 AM. If you can't make it home by 2, you pass out and awaken the next day with half your stamina bar, and sometimes even stolen items. This creates a much needed tension in the game and makes you want to stick around for the next day. The final restriction is the change in seasons, which brings new crops and holidays to look forward to. The restriction that comes with it is the fact that all your crops from the season will die off and cannot be used in the next season. These crops can end up being used next year during the same season. This forces you to plan out when each crop is planted so you aren't wasting any money. Although I feel these restrictions can be mostly positive to the overall experience, there was one that stuck out to me as negative. This is the entire winter season. You cannot plant any crops during the winter due to the snow, which keeps you from playing what the game actually is meant to be about, farming. Luckily, this is the best time to adventure the caves and a few more activities. But during the season, I didn't feel a strong drive to keep playing when you have all this free time to do what feels like nothing. Throughout your time in the new town, you meet the townsfolk, each with their own full story arcs. Your job, along with rebuilding and tending to your farm, is to build relationships with the other members of Stardew Valley. For the first few seasons, I loved this part of the game. It also felt like this part of the game had the most attention given to it. There are 10 different marriage options, which is nice in theory, but in my opinion, this is the part of the game that falls into the typical grinding tropes. There are 2 ways to improve relationships with the townspeople: giving gifts and talking to them. Talking each day is a very slow way to improve your relationships, so you're always going to be sticking to the gifts. You are able to give each character 2 gifts per week, and they all have differing tastes. I found myself randomly giving away items every day, which honestly took me completely out of the immersion. Yes, it feels great when you eventually get a few relationship cutscenes, but it didn't feel quite right after going through what you just did. People must have thought that I was some kind of psychopathic Christmas elf dropping off presents at their doorstep every morning. What's worse than relationship building is when you finally get married. Your spouse somehow loses all of what makes them interesting, which might be a commentary on real-life marriage, but I don't buy it. Then when you decide to have a kid, you barely feel like you've achieved something big. Also, the baby has superpowers, so that's really weird. It might seem like I hate the whole relationship part of the game, but I think that's far from the truth. I really appreciate that it's a completely optional thing, and it adds a bit more depth to the already massive game. I'm just gonna finish off on a positive note because I feel like I'm really being a negative Nancy here. For an indie game made by a single developer, this is a huge achievement. I keep being super surprised at how many surprise reveals there are over time. I'm currently 2 years into the game's storyline, and I am still discovering new things each day. The game just keeps building and gets better over time. I had some serious issues with the relationship mechanics, but the farming is really what keeps me coming back every day. And with that, I'm going to give Stardew Valley a 7 out of 10. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I post a new review each Saturday, so subscribe for more of that action. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Hopefully I wasn't too harsh, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.